Welcome to the Art of Conscious Living. I'm very pleased to have as my guest today an acclaimed filmmaker and author, Neal RogIn. We're here to talk about all of his incredible body of work that he's done for over the decades, and also to take note of this great man, of this great heart that he has, and this humanitarian. So, Neal, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks, Victoria. It's great to be here.
How are you today?
I'm excellent, thanks.
Wonderful. Well, let's go back to the very beginning, when you first started as a young man, and
Wow.
the making of you, the making of Neal RogIn.
You want to talk about my parents making love, or not quite that far back, right?
Just shortly thereafter.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I grew up in Chicago, born and raised in Chicago till, I went to school, high school, college, and went into the advertising business, became a writer. Did my standard urban kind of 50s and 60s living. I kind of came awake in my 20s because I was kind of marching along with everybody else, with my friends, this group of people who went to high school. We all went to high school. We all went to college together. We all started dating girls together. We all started getting married together. And then suddenly the 60s hit. And I remember I was married, living 5 minutes between my mother and her mother in the suburbs. And one Halloween, I went to a Halloween party dressed, my costume was a hippie. And I had like a headband, and I had a vest, and I had cigarette, kind of rolled up oregano in my pocket as kind of props. And then it really hit me. And then like a year later, I was wearing those same clothes, and I was a real hippie. So the transformation kind of took me, and I ended up taking my love for communication into writing, short films and writing scripts, and I really became interested in personal growth. And
So this is what you call your awakening.
Yeah.
What was the awakening? You mentioned that you were part of the majority, what everybody else was doing,
Yeah.
and now you extracted yourself from that and you became an individual.
Yeah.
So within becoming this individual of Neal, of who you really were, and really owning that, this awakening.
Yeah.
What was it like?
Well, it happened when I was in Chicago, when I was involved in this kind of my dear, lovely woman that I married and, was living with, and, starting to trying to raise a family and do the right thing. And when suddenly the world kind of intruded on me. And my sister, this is, kind of telling a tale out of school, my sister at that time gave me a marijuana joint, gave me a joint back in 64, 65. And that was the first starting where I realized, wait a minute, I'm going to be 50 someday. I'm not a tree, I don't have roots, I can actually move, I have a life. It was like literally coming awake to myself and becoming aware at a level I hadn't before.
So there was a liveness that you were connecting to within you.
Yeah. And there was, life has a possibility. It's not just this thing I'm going to do day by day by day, but that it's like a canvas. I'm an artist. I could express. I can do stuff. So I began to question everything, and I kind of threw everything over. I was in writing copy at an ad agency. I was, being a normal person, and then suddenly I discovered myself as part of the great hippie migration coming to San Francisco. And I like to say that I came out here during it was when the turbulent time for a lot of people, where a lot of people were throwing over the old world and taking a chance on something new. And
the new was to be an individual, to express oneself, and not be part of the collective, the majority.
Yeah, I would say that's right.
So that when you were becoming that and you start looking at what you could have been part of the majority, how did you look at others? of being now that you were owning your own individuality?
Well, I don't know. I don't say I wasn't judging other people, but I was really seeing. It's a little bit like the old world and the new world when people came from Europe to America and took a chance, and said, I don't know where I'm going, but it's not going to be here. I knew what I didn't want, and there was also this rush of freedom, letting your hair grow, there was a dispelling of the old and a taking on of something new. I thought the 60s was the revolution, that we were all talking about the revolution. In retrospect, it wasn't the revolution. It was an opening night party for the revolution.
Opening night party for the revolution.
Yeah.
Huh.
So, because it's taken a lot longer and it's unfolded over time, but it's.
It was definitely a time of questioning authority, where one was connecting to their individuality and saying, no, I'm not part of that, and you cannot control me.
Right.
So what happened to that period of time? I mean, it was there in the 60s and the 70s, and now, is it forgotten?
Oh, no, I don't think so. I think it was the beginning of an entirely new frame or new context for being human. I think it was discovering kind of like we're birds who've been walking and didn't know we could fly, so that there's a new possibility. I'm convinced that there's a very fundamental shift happening now. I mean, it started then, but it's really matured and ripened, and that we're at this place where we're questioning the context for what it means to be a person. So the context is that human beings on this planet are the most brilliant animal. That we're just like really smarter than pigs, and we're the ape with the opposable thumb. We can think. We're the kind of the crown of creation, and but we're at the top of something, and it's not working. There's still more, and so I think that we're moving into a time where we're coming from thinking of ourselves as brilliant animals and realizing no, we're ignorant gods. So rather than the top end of first gear, we're moving into the bottom of second gear. So we're going from arrogance to humility, and that was the process that I began as when I started throwing off and becoming aware that there's something more. I don't know what it is, but there's something more to me, and beginning to explore the personal growth. I say that when I began, personal growth was something you would have removed, but it becomes part of an ongoing process, that keeps unfolding. I'm surprised every day.
So you've conducted a number of seminars about the conscious movement and about self-realization over the decades. What have you seen the difference over the last 30 years to the present time of where we're at?
It's a great question. Back in 1971, I met Werner Erhard and got involved in EST and became like a staff member.
And it changed to the forum later.
Yeah, EST became the landmark forum. Right. And back then it was kind of like an intervention, in that people were pretending, my life is great, my marriage is good, everything's fine, I'm happy, when they weren't. And maybe they would go to a therapist and say, I'm miserable, I can't stand my marriage, but mostly the facade was everybody, I'm fine, I'm really good. And then what I witnessed was people like Werner or things like EST, where people would go and begin to break down that facade and say, it's not working for me. I'm really pretending that it's working. And then dealing with the truth. And so I recognize that you have no control over your life if you're living in pretense, if you're not telling the truth. But you really do have control over your life if you deal with the rubble of having told the truth, of really saying, look, it's not working. Okay, I said it. Then you can work with each other. So this was a kind of an opening where people began to tell themselves the truth. And over time, I think it's been a continual movement of refinement, and people becoming more and more capable and loving and open and truthful with each other.
When you say people, let's go back again to the beginning. In the 60s, you were claiming your individuality, and you were very aware of the majority. So my point being that today, are the majority doing that? Are the majority even aware of what we're speaking about? Are they aware of Est and all the consciousness? Or are they still under the rule of the authoritarians, where they just go to work and they're not being honest to themselves, as you point out? They're just saying, okay, I'm okay, but they're really not okay.
Yeah.
But they know that they're not okay, but they can't go there yet.
Right.
This is the modus operandum of the majority.
Yeah, I think that there's like a line or a border between those two worlds. I think that we're living in a time when there's two worlds in the world. One that's kind of the world that we inherited, that is still pretty in charge and still loud, but it's kind of fading in a way, even though it's louder. There's a world that's dying, and there's a world that's being born. And we're kind of in the midst. We see both of that happening. I do see people still trapped in not telling the truth and trying to embrace the old ways of trying to look good rather than be accurate or be truthful. And then there's people who are, freeing themselves up to fly and to be, more open and awake. So I think that there's this declining world and a rising world. There's a world that we need to, as my friend Lynn Twist says, there's a world we need to hospice, and there's a world we need to midwife.
So perhaps the door is just being open, a crack of the door where this newfound reality, where the majority will be able to embrace that more, and others have to step through that. Other individuals will step through that door first.
Yeah.
And be the leaders to give the example and to inspire the others to do so.
Yeah, I would say that's accurate. I think that what's happening is, I look at it like a stem and a flower. So the world that I came from and that we all lived in will be fulfilled by what comes next, the flowering of people, so that it'll make sense where we were, and it's just nascent. It's just in the birthing stage. It's coming through us, and it's it's the most exciting time to be alive ever, because we have this merger of consciousness and technology. So I think the human race is actually a race, and it's a race between artificial intelligence and artificial stupidity. So will we use our genius in service of our fear, or will we use it in service of love? And I think that the tendency of the universe is to move towards love. So I think that that's a natural unfolding. And
Neal, the ultimate answer to that, is it to be answered by the authoritarians or by the individuals? Because at the moment, the authoritarians have an ironclad hold on the countries and the collective world.
Yeah.
So we're speaking about America, Europe, Russia. So where is the birthing of that? Who is going to determine at what point in time saying that you're either coming from love or you're going to come from fear? Are the authoritarians even aware of that? Because they don't use love,
right.
Authoritarians,
right.
for their
right.
means to an end.
Right. Well, I mean,
so how do we as individuals let the governments and the authoritarians know that we need to be honored for our individuality and we need to work with them? Where is the working modus operandum for that to happen?
Well, I don't know if that's possible to negotiate this transaction between personal freedom and the desire of the collective to control us. Because the collective, or you say the authoritarian mindset, is that people cannot be trusted, that they need to be governed, that human beings are by nature evil. And that's an old argument. It's the argument between John Adams and Thomas Jefferson, in a way, was the masses can be trusted and we need to govern them, or the people are natural and wonderful, and if they have freedom and liberty and the chance to express themselves, they will make mistakes and correct, and everything will be fine. That freedom is, given freedom, human beings will evolve and do the right thing.
So the authoritarians say that the masses need to be controlled.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because if it leaves it to their means, then they'll tear apart their world.
Yeah.
They're not capable of taking care of
Right.
themselves, basically.
Right. That everything needs to be managed and controlled, and there needs to be rules, and people need to be policed and watched over, and and it looks like things happen that reinforce that opinion, but it's like poking a dog in a cage, and then when it bites you, you say, "See, that dog is mean." So, but people are, when they're restricted, it's an artificial kind of. I mean, if you took a laboratory experiment and you put up too many mice and not enough food, they would fight. But that's not their nature. It's not our nature to need to be controlled. It just looks like that, And I'm really clear that the opportunity we have is to, I'll put it this way. When I was I remember being in the jungle, in the Amazon, and I'm sitting on the porch of this casita in the middle of the Amazon jungle in Ecuador, and it's evening, and the sun is getting darker, and the noise of the jungle is starting getting louder. The howler monkeys are howling, and I'm looking out at the canopy across the lagoon, and I'm thinking, and it's just getting louder and louder, and I'm thinking, that place is out of control. There's nothing but a bunch of wild animals out there, and it's totally working. It's balanced. It's beautiful. That the nature of things is, we don't need to control everything. We can allow things to happen if we allow people to grow, if we allow kids with some guidance to express themselves. That human nature is beautiful. It's loving, it's cooperative. It's not competition, it's not, the nature red in tooth and claw, which is this sense of, that we've got a survival of the fittest being the strongest, and that you've got to fight for everything you get. That's not, where we're going, and it's not the ultimate quality of human nature. So the individual can be trusted, let's say.
Let's speak about your film, Awakening Universe.
Mm-hmm.
Why did you make this film, and what is it all about?
I ran into a book, and then I met the man who wrote the book, and I started reading more about him. And I'll say the book is called The Universe Story by Brian Swim and Thomas Berry. Now, Thomas Berry just died recently at age 94. He was a Catholic theologian, kind of a mystical Catholic, who wrote many wonderful books and essays about the community of life and human beings' relationship to nature. Where do we fit in? And a very grand, big vision. Brian Swim is a mathematical cosmologist. And when I read this book, I realized that we have an entirely new context for living. It's called the new cosmology. The old cosmology was that the universe was always here. It's a place like a stage, and we're placed on it like players. And the new cosmology is, no, the universe is really not a place, it's a process. It's unfolding, it had a beginning. We're the first generation to realize that the universe had a beginning, that it's an unfolding process that over time has led to us.
Well, Brian Swim has done a lot of work on the DNA strand and looking at the different strands of how we operate. And as they are decoding the DNA strand of the human, they're learning a lot more than they've ever known. So they're beginning to look at it in a different way, and they're looking at it in more of a quantum way of being, and saying that things aren't so fixed. And so there's so many new possibilities right now, and we're on the doorstep of great things and great ways of looking at things.
Yeah.
Which we have at one point. We thought the world was flat. I mean,
Yeah, only 75, 80 years ago, the argument among astronomers was there one galaxy or two? You know, they used to think that the Milky Way was the universe. And now we're saying, wait a minute, not only is there not one or two, there's maybe 1 trillion galaxies. And each has 1 trillion stars. So that means that suddenly we find ourselves in an immensity we had no idea was here. The context for living in, suddenly the horizons go out in huge ways and in every direction. So suddenly we are planetary beings that we didn't know we were. We're cosmological beings we didn't know we were. And so the frame in which we find ourselves living is completely blown out. And that's causing us to have to rethink everything. And we're going through that process of, well, I thought I knew where we were, but now I don't know. But the not knowing part is coupled with our discovery of technologies that allow us to communicate with each other in ways never before. So there's this birth happening. There's this new kind of being emerging that each of us is a part of. You know, that we're ingredients in a recipe. We're individuals, but we're also ingredients in a larger recipe, a larger whole being, maybe a planetary being that has a life and a consciousness of its own. And you know, it just blows my mind, you know, to be thinking of these things. That's why I did the film. I wanna let us know, or just point out, hey, this is changing everything. You know, like we used to think, they said the world was flat. It took a while for people to get that. No, wait a minute, it's not flat. It's round, and I don't mean like a pizza, but like a ball. And that, you know, it took a couple hundred years before people really got that we're on this ball, and it's going to take a while for us to process the immensity of the thing that we find ourselves in.
I think it would be very helpful that whatever we do know in the way of science or medical or social or cultural, to always have an attitude that perhaps there is more, perhaps we don't know everything, perhaps it's always forever changing, and we're on a journey of exploratory, of being on the experiential. And in the experiential, when you adopt that attitude and that way of thinking, the world is much, much more of an honest place. When you are closed-minded and fixed, there's a dishonesty happening there.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So this is what I hear you're saying, basically.
Yeah.
And
yeah, but you live in a pretense that nothing's changing when everything's changing all the time. That we are ourselves a process that keeps unfolding and changing. Everything you're looking at, the trillions of transactions that are going on in my body, in my cells, you know, everything is evolving and changing. It's either beginning, changing, or stopping, but everything is this overlapping change.
right. It's important to point out, as when we first started speaking about this fixed attitude of oneself, that we're being dishonest to ourselves. We're not being truthful to ourselves. So again, as individuals, being honest to ourselves and being open and knowing that we're on this experiential process, then the world becomes a very beautiful place.
Yeah.
In doing so.
Yeah. You become innocent like a child in that everything becomes a discovery. Because if you think you know, and now you know everything, then you won't learn anything, and that we are learning processes all the time. So I agree with you that if you, for safety's sake, try and become certain and safe and secure and fixed, then you become like a rock in a stream, you know, and you can get washed away. But if you flow with it, because it's ever changing, so I'm always trying to be surprised.
Yes. My definition of intelligence is curiosity, being open. That's the surest sign of great intelligence, of always wondering and asking questions. And that's where our great thinkers and great men
Right.
and women in the past, they've always had that
Right.
in common, where people think that intelligence is all about what they have read in books and what fixed ideas that they have and what they're going to expound on from that. That to me is not intelligence. It's about being very much open and keep it open.
Right.
So
I agree.
you are in the process of writing a book.
Yeah. I'm collecting a kind of insights along the way of my spiritual journey. And I've always been curious and try and get to a place in when I sit down to write of being curious and empty. In other words, I try not to bring anything that I know to the process I'm about to engage in. So I think that there's a vast, brilliant knowing that surrounds me and that I can tap into if I'm humble and don't think I know. Because a lot of times I would sit down and try and write and I'd be like rummaging around in what I've learned. And it's just like repurposing old ideas or trying to come up with something new out of reconstructing. Creativity used to be thought of as like taking two old ideas and making something new out of them. But that's like clamato juice. Things that, it's not, that isn't what creativity is. Creativity is something that's like, surprises you. That was never here before and now it's here and it's wonderful. But it wasn't seen as missing until you did it. So,
Do you have a working title for the book?
yeah, the working title is The Light at the End of the Tunnel is a Mirror. Because I think that basically we are what we are looking for. And who we are seeking is ourselves, truly. We're like a flashlight looking for where the light is coming from. And the pursuit of something more is really the pursuit of our own self. And it's always been a surprise, that to be delighted is to be enlightened. So I think that this came a lot of my. I had cancer 2 years ago. So
How long ago?
2 years.
2 years ago.
Yeah.
What type of cancer?
It was throat cancer.
Oh.
And
Was this the Michael Douglas?
kind of,
Yeah.
yeah,
The actor Michael Douglas
Yeah.
just passed the
right,
year of that treatment.
right.
And what was that journey like?
Well, it was,
Neal?
to be confronted with the. It was a kind of, I couldn't, for the first time, I couldn't comfort myself by saying, what's the worst that can happen? Oh, I could die, okay. At least you have your health. No, you don't. So there was a kind of a cornering myself into a confrontation or into a meeting with my mortality. So I had a really amazing adventure by befriending death. And I called him the guy with the hoodie and the sickle. Because suddenly there it was. The whole idea that, see, life was all I knew, right? So I never knew anything else. So life was just everything. So it wasn't special. It was everything. And suddenly there was this like, there's an end to it. Suddenly it was on this backdrop of this black velvet death, life showed up as this jewel, this precious moment that I have, that I'm not going to always have. And I think that process was the most transformative thing that ever happened to me, was having to deal with that.
So in essence, you became friends with death.
Mm-hmm.
You honored life as a jewel, as you say, but you also became friends with death, which most people do not do that.
No.
Most people, the majority of the people, they never think about it, and and that is going to happen to other people, but they're not really thinking it's happening to them anytime soon.
Yeah. I always say that the movie you're starring in, called Your Life, I don't want to ruin it for you, but the hero dies in the end. So if there's something you're putting off that you're going to do someday, this is someday morning. So do what you came here to do. The thing you're really dying to do before you die. And so that for me became, I don't procrastinate anymore. And I joke about that. I said there's nothing wrong with procrastination. I used it many times myself. It's a wonderful success strategy. I even wrote a book about it called The Power of Not Now. But procrastination is, I would put it off.
So would it be fair to say that before you were diagnosed with your illness of cancer, that you were thinking that you were open and spiritual, but then this forced you to go deeper?
Yeah.
This was the card that said, now it's time to really waken up.
When something becomes more real, it's real at a level. I was fine. I was a good person. I was growing. I was contributing. I was making movies. I'm living my life. But suddenly there was a backdrop to it all, where suddenly it became like, oh no, this is like not going to go on forever. I should enjoy every second. I should not miss a thing, because there's a preciousness now to it. And everybody's going to die. It's like, sorry, but that's the truth. And for everyone, it's all going to go away, or it's going to be something else. I don't know what it is.
So in honoring that preciousness of life, was every moment, your attitude, your perceptions, your feelings, your thoughts, everything shifted and changed, and you perhaps were in this place where everything slowed down and everything became like a reverence for life and a respect for every thought and moment and every breath. I like to say that every breath that one takes is life as a living prayer. It's not begging and asking outside you as a typical prayer. It's living life as the prayer. In every moment, it's blessed, it's sacred, it's experiential, it's new.
Yeah. It's never happened before. Nothing that's happening has ever happened before. So yes, everything is new. And it also caused me to examine, I was saying, well, if I die, who's going to die? Who's here? Who am I? What is the nature of this? And I became really fascinated with my identity. I noticed that I have this personality. I have this way, when I get up in the morning, I have a look on my face so that people know it's me, and I have a style and it's just my uniqueness, right? And how I express myself.
Your persona, your character that you
Yeah.
identified with.
Right. So that I think is me. When I say me, I think that's. But I began to realize, no, there's a collective me that I think I am, but I really am not. It's like a collection of manners and ways of being. So I'll put it this way. I realized that I had been doing a really good impression of myself. I would when something would happen, there would be like a little calculation that I caught of where I would go, what would I do if I were me? What would Neal do in this case? How can I be consistent with my identity? So if something would happen, I would act like Neal. And that was an artifice in a way. It was something I put in there. Because really, if I am not consumed by trying to be consistent, and to act like me, whoever me is, so that other people know it's me and I'm consistent, I get to stay me, But if I just kind of respond naturally to what's in front of me, rather than filter it through my identity or my personality and be consistent and stay Neal and all that. Neal's life story and how it's going to turn out, the narrative of my life, the kind of script I'm writing, what's going to happen next, it became like a reality show that I was tuned into. I would tune in every day to see is Neal going to be voted off the island today? So what's going to happen to Neal? And I recognized also that my anxieties and my fears are caught up in this story. if I don't tell this story and stay present in the moment, there's no fear. There's no, because I'm not attached to this narrative. Because the narrative is going to end. He's going to die. And he'll be in the middle of something. It won't be like this big finish. I'll be, either I'll have unfinished work and I'll get sick and die, but something will happen and it'll be over and that story will be done. If I can withdraw my allegiance from that story while it's happening and realize, oh, if I'm not that, but I'm still here, then who is that? So that there is my consciousness, the point of consciousness that's here, that is eternal. That doesn't die, and it won't die. But all this will go away. But the awareness that we are, you and I have the same, we are the same awareness. There's only one awareness between us, between any of us. There's all these people, but one awareness. And that connection to people, that connection with me, where I see you as, we're one. We're not just connected. We're the same. We're identical. And you have your view of it and your expression of it, which is wonderful. And I have mine, which is wonderful. And we get to play, but it's one awareness playing.
So essentially, when you remove the story, you're removing the fear, and an absence of fear, it just remains pure, unadulterated, unconditional purity of love.
Yeah.
And that is our true essential nature.
Yeah.
And we align ourselves with that.
Yeah.
Ram Dass, he did a film and a book about, it's called Fierce Grace.
Yeah.
And he had a heart attack. And he had to reevaluate everything, being the spiritual teacher that he was for many decades. And he came to that ultimate conclusion and knowing and being, be here now, back in the 60s, 70s, be here now is basically of that love, nothing more and nothing less but that.
Yeah, yeah. And it's to stay, or you can't always stay, I can't always stay in that awareness because I get pulled into my story. And I want to be, because that's why I'm here. I'm here to have this experience. It's like a 3D, HD, stereo, virtual gadget that we're in. And I'm here to enjoy it.
So you're going back and forth between the two?
Yeah.
But the story and the awareness of self?
Yeah.
And how often is that happening during the day? Is it, and why is that happening?
Well, I have this, I notice this kind of, I get more and more pulled out of my story and aware and into the love as the day goes by. And at night, I'm like, wow, this is great. And then I'll go to sleep, and then I'll wake up, and I said, the marine layer has come in, or there's my story is waiting for me to jump into. It's like it's already consumed me in my dream. It's kind of like occupy me. And I wake up, I'm in my story again. I go, oh, but I'm aware of it, but I'm still in it. And it takes a while to go, oh God, I'm gonna have coffee, but it takes me. But I do kind of like snap out of it and become, this kind of. It's like going to a movie. It's not like I want to wake up from my life. I don't, or a dream. I don't want to, wake up and not have it. Oh, that's over. No, I want a lucid dream. I want to. Oh, this is a dream I'm in. I like the dream. I'm going to stay in it, but I want to be awake in the dream. It's like going to a movie and saying, well, you keep saying to yourself, it's only a movie. It's only a movie. It's no fun.
Right. Well, in the lucid dreaming, you are able to control the dream and be aware of that you are dreaming as you are controlling the dream.
Yeah.
So you're like the master director of your own dreams.
Yeah.
And being in that awareness of that. And then you remember that upon your awakening, not that you're really asleep, but it is a form of deep, deep sleep opposed to our ordinary consciousness.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
and it's, in a real dream, when you're sleeping and dreaming, you're the dreamer, and everybody in the dream is you because you're making it up, right? And it's no different in this life dream. Everybody is me that I see, and I'm making them up, and everybody is you, and your dream is everybody's you, and that, we're the dreamer, But it's, you know, so it's a similar thing. And I'm not necessarily interested in transcending that. I'm interested in enjoying it because it's amazing. I mean, it's more amazing that it's a dream than it's real. You know, that it's like saying, wow, this is like unlimited budget. Everything is like, the props are incredible. They just feel so real, and everything's so, you know, and we love that. We love that as beings. We love the sadness. We love the drama. We love the horror. We love the, you know, we're here to have this full experience of being, of living. And so everything is fodder for our spiritual self to process, to enjoy, you know. Our soul, and is that Walt Whitman says, you know, to be with friends pleases the soul well, but all things please the soul, but this pleases the soul well. So everything that happens to you pleases your soul, even if it's suffering, even if it's finding out you got cancer, even if it's, you know, losing a loved one. The soul is like, that's food, you know. I'm here to experience. And your soul is always growing, your body's declining, but your soul is growing. So I think that the process of being alive is, you know, it's just something you don't want to miss.
You went through treatment, and how are you today?
There's no wood to knock on, but, you know, cancer-free. I mean, no evidence of disease. So I had 7 weeks of radiation. I had my encounter with what I call the cancer industrial complex. I mean, when you really look at how many people have cancer, how many people are treating, how many people are making their living out of treating, how many billions of dollars in, thank goodness for Siemens and the machine and everything. But it is a kind of it's a sick person driven economy. We, you know, like coal-fired furnace. It's the sick person is the fuel, you know, like our illnesses fuels a vast industry of people. And, you know, we monetized it and everything, and now but it's very, you know, if people weren't sick, there would be a tough economy, because there's a whole lot of people out of work. You know, so there's something to be said, and I love the people that treated me. I love the whole fact that I could get treatment and go to UCSF and get the finest, and, you know, I was really blessed. But there is an attachment or a monetization of our why are we so sick? Why are so many people getting cancer? Why is, you know, it's like that. We should ask that question: is what is the root cause and the discontinuity and the kind of the breakdown that's allowing us, our bodies, which are designed to be healthy, for them to become sick, you know, and we should question that.
So the day that you were told that you were cancer-free, and now you got your ticket that you can go back to the story now.
Yeah.
Did you see a shift happening slowly where you kind of migrated back to...
A little bit, you know, yeah. You know, it's kind of like a war story where people were in the war and they said it was the most alive they ever felt when they were threatened, and, you know, and then it was over, and they kind of miss it, you know, kind of miss being in combat. And there was a kind of a reality. Well, number one, everybody was like, oh, how are you? How are you? So I had a lot of attention. And that always feels great, you know, for a personality to get a lot of loving attention. And then it was a way for me to experience how many people love me. Because, you know, like, I may die. Oh, no, you know. So it caused a lot of attention. And there was some, and I swear that was part of my healing, is everybody caring about me. And the kind of community of friends giving me all this good vibe and concern and prayers and, you know, thinking about me and praying for me. You know, it's all good stuff. I loved it, and it worked. And then it was like, oh, you're okay, good. And then they're onto other things. And I went, hey, you know, I like that. You know, it's like your birthday or something, where it's so that there is a kind of a missing kind of an immediacy when, oh, you're okay now, and people could stop worrying about you. So, but yeah, but I'm permanently altered. You know, it was definitely a mid-course correction, where I didn't take the off-ramp to die, but I stayed on the road. But the slight kind of detour I took was to Illville, I called it. You know, it was like a round trip to Illville.
I've met numerous people that had life-threatening diseases, and they were in treatment, and they have spoken to me and said that it's the best thing that ever happened to them, where they are no longer in the anger stage and no longer in that person who's just saying, I'm okay, but they're really not okay. They had to go really, really deeper. And this transcendence of being honest with themselves, it really brought them to a very beautiful place.
Yeah.
And you could really see the very notable difference of the before and after.
Yeah.
But it was a beautiful thing of the after.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I often think about that, of questioning, does it really take these things of terrible accidents or terrible diseases to help us, or can it take love and bliss and happiness to foster this within us?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I'm living with that same question, and you know, having conversations with people about death and dying, and seeing that it's kind of a popular, becoming more popular conversation. And I don't know if it's because the baby boom is now moving into that, and now it's the last fad, you know, because everything the baby boomers did became it, you know, whether it was marriage and kids and, you know, and now it's this. So, and we're going to transform it. But I think it's you know, I'm having really deep conversations with people that I never had before, because, you know, we're in the fourth quarter, some of us, of our lives. And that, you know, you're not about, you don't measure how far you've come anymore, you've got to measure how far you've got left. You know, so you do this kind of turnaround. Instead of going, oh, I've done this and I've done this, I can only do this much time. So, you know, the questions about how you spend your day, what's real and what's important. You know, when I was in treatment and people, you know, got down to it right away with me. There was not a lot of wasted time. It was like, how are you? And it wasn't like, how you doing? You know, it was like, how are you doing? And there was a deep concern and a deep response. And we got, you know, had amazing conversation with people I never had before, with conversations with people that, you know, it was useful. And that's part of that is still going on. Part of that, you know, is staying real and not being in the, you know, and looking good.
Well, it's noteworthy to point out that the people in the first quarter, nothing is guaranteed there.
Mm-hmm.
We all think it is. We all think that we are all given 100 years or more, and that's the given. But that's not really true, is it?
No.
So it's very important to really honor that and really live each day and each moment.
Yeah.
And that way of knowing that, of the openness and the acceptance and the love in that, within that moment, that could happen.
Yeah.
And is happening.
And I tell you, what I've come out with is the recognition that more than anything, I want to make a contribution. I want to do what I'm here to do for everybody. You know, that there's this yearning, and I think this is like essential to all of us, that deep in our heart, we're born with this desire to make a difference, to contribute. That makes our heart sing. You know, that if you ask a little kid before he's been trained or acculturated, what do you want to be when you grow up? They'll say something like, I want to be an astronaut, I want to be a fireman, I want to be a nurse, I want to help. You know, it's their version of I want to help. I want to make things better.
So the key word would be to be in service.
Yeah, right.
To help others.
Yeah, and that's what really serves us, is to serve. And you know, we have to make a living. You know, the way the culture is set up, you can't really pursue that. And you know, you've got to go and do your thing and then give back. You know, this whole thing. And I question that, because I think that we're at a time when there's a new purpose for being human that's revealing itself. And it's more than just being a good person and having a family and being, and raising kids and being successful and dying. But that there's service at a grand scale that I think evolution is calling to us now. It's our time on stage, in a way. That there's been this is my friend Carter Phipps pointed this out, and I just really love it. There's been 3 big bangs. There's the cosmological Big Bang, which is an evolutionary space of itself. Things evolve, because it started out as just hydrogen gas, and it became palm trees and pelicans and Beethoven. And then there's the second Big Bang was the emergence of life. That was like a Big Bang of its own. And it has an evolutionary space. Things evolved within that realm. And then the third Big Bang was human consciousness, self-reflective consciousness. And that has an evolutionary space, so you become more aware and more awake and more complete and more, so you just evolve that way. And that we are evolutionary activists now. So our service is being called by evolution itself. So we are, and you can feel something big happening. Like if you're a surfer and a big wave is coming, it draws a wave at first. You feel, whoa. It's like, so we can feel like things going against us a little bit, but that's because something big is drawing up. A big wave is coming, and we're going to surf that wave. We are the water droplets in that wave. We're participating with that. So it's human consciousness has kind of been, human beings have been kind of in the wings, and now it's our time to kind of like take center stage and do our part. And
well, Neal, we just have a few moments left. I'd like to ask you what final thoughts you'd like to share.
Gosh. That was
something you're very passionate about, and
well, I am
dear to your heart.
I am passionate about who human beings are and why we're here, and that it is our time. That what's calling to us now, the yearning that we all have to make a difference, to serve, is really bubbling up. And I think humanity is coming to its own rescue. I meet young kids today who are amazing, who are geniuses, who know so much more. I had the opportunity to work with Buckminster Fuller before he died. And he said that children are our elders in universe time because they're born into a more evolved universe. So kids born today have much more capabilities than we have. And I think we are going to see a renaissance, an amazing flowering, a fluorescence of humanity in this world that will make this look like the dark time, but it'll fulfill everything we've ever wanted to do.
Well, Neal, it's been a great honor, great pleasure to speak with you. And
thank you.
To absolutely meet you. And I'd like to invite you again on the show. Absolutely. We have so much more to talk about.
Thank you. Yeah, we do.
Thank you.
I really appreciate your
questions.
Thank you, Neal.
And from the Art of Conscious Living, please do take care of yourselves and take care of others.